We got a lot to talk about today because there is going to be a new commissioner in college football and potentially in the world of sports in general. And who that may be, and also all of the things that go along with that, and the House versus the NCAA, that settlement, and how the $20.5 million, how that's going to work, and then Trump's new NIL guidance, how that factors into the whole thing, because this is a disaster waiting to happen. And Patrick Mahomes, speaking of disasters, not the junior, the senior versus John Rocker. A fight is happening, and this is also a disaster that we have to talk about. And Cam Newton, actually, this might just be the disaster episode because Cam Newton is flirting with disaster with the way he's talking about his former teammates, about his career, everything else. And he needs to be a little more careful. And also, speaking of a disaster, the Dallas Mavericks and their fans versus the front office, disaster all over the place. That and so much more here on the Unafraid Show. Make sure that you like, subscribe, get notifications, tell a friend about the show, and most importantly, share. Let's get to it. So, you always got to follow the money. And we are going to start with the money because Yahoo Sports reported last week that the creation of an LLC amongst the the four power conferences, so the ACC, SEC, Big 12, and Big 10, that is going to oversee the implementation of the House settlement, that multi-billion dollar deal that's going to go backwards and pay players back to 2015 or 2016, and then have a revenue sharing model with the players that essentially creates a $20.5 million salary cap to pay athletes over the whole school. Now, there's a few portions of this that are good and bad. So first thing, a commissioner of college football, 100% needed. But this appears to be that there's going to be a commissioner over all of college sports, which is a terrible idea. And this House settlement has been a disaster to begin with. So there's so many objections that is not going to stop the lawsuits. Now, and that's where President Trump factors into this because he may be able to get this pushed through and give them some sort of antitrust exemption. If the NCAA or the new, whatever the new model is, gets an antitrust exemption, that is a disaster, an ultimate disaster for the agency of the players and for their rights, benefits, and everything else, because that essentially puts a pin in a lot of the lawsuits. But before we get to the Trump angle of it, let's talk about this new model to begin with. Now, that $20.5 million, I do not believe, and I've said it from the beginning, that this is an absolute joke. That if people believe that schools are going to stick to the $20.5 million, you have lost your mind. You are living in fantasy land, fairy tale land, and you need to wake up Peter Pan. Let me tell you exactly how they are going to get around this. So let's say I, George Wrighster, own the Unafraid Show. Let's say that I want a school to be successful or a particular athlete in particular. I want them to do some sort of marketing for me or not. I can sign them to a deal. Let's say I sign the quarterback at UC Davis, Damon Wrighster, to a NIL deal. I want to pay Damon Wrighster $1 million a year. Well, that doesn't fall within that $20.5 million. And yes, they're supposed to report every NIL deal over $600. But let's say I have Damon Wrighster on here on the Unafraid Show. There's no determining factor how much I should pay him for that. Let's say I want to pay him $1 million for one appearance, $250,000 for four appearances that make up $1 million. So that's where schools are going to get around it because those same people that donate millions of dollars, right, to their collective right now. These people own businesses. They can open up businesses, anything, and say, all right, and circumvent that $20.5 million. It is never, under any circumstances, going to be a level playing field, because trying to limit how much somebody can make in a free market is the most un-American thing that I've heard. America first, America, bring back the freedom, make America great. Well, that ain't making America great. I'll tell you that right now. It is a flawed system. Like, it is the exact same reason that LeBron James, in marketing dollars outside of the NBA, makes more money than, you know, uh, than the fifth man, eighth man on the Lakers bench. He made more than Anthony Davis, who made more than Austin Reeves, who made more than, whoever. This is the way it works in sports. So this Pollyanna idea that all of a sudden that you're going to have some magic fair play, that this is going to be balanced. It's not. And yes, a commissioner will help, but this is putting lipstick on a pig. This is not a new model. This is just throwing a band-aid on the problems, all the lawsuits that keep coming up, and trying to say, okay, cool, let's find that, let's repackage this. No, the NCAA needs to be blown up, and particular football, who their championships aren't even governed by the NCAA. They need to be a separate entity. And we're actually in this predicament of having to completely remodel college sports because the NCAA wasn't proactive in getting things done. Let's let's take a look at this, because whether it comes from rulemaking, whether it comes to punishment, enforcement, any of those things, because you actually had the 40-member NCAA council, which is primarily their legislative authority. Now, part of the authority means that that the faculty athletics representative at Northern Arizona is going to shape policy and help the same people that are over at Oregon, that are over at Texas, that are over at Memphis, that are over at Florida. That the same people that are represent, because the problems that are at Miami of Ohio or Lehigh are not the same problems that are at Oklahoma or USC. It's not. And now you already have a transition team of athletic directors, compliance officers, and general counselors that are already in the process of finalizing that. Now, Judge Claudia Wilkin is expected to approve the House settlement on April 7th. And if she does, there is going to be a litany of significant other lawsuits. And this goes back to how the NCAA has operated, because it has not been a fair system. Because think about what happened when you had former infractions committee chair, the late Miami athletic director, Paul D. He actually judged USC under Pete Carroll when they got all those, when they got put on probation and given harsh penalties, when he had massive wrongdoing going on in his own program. Look at Michigan. They're about to skate. They're about to literally skate on two major infractions cases. The first one, where Jim Harbaugh was handed a show cause after going to the NFL. Now, he probably won't coach in college again. And then the second one was the Connor Stallion scandal. And Michigan is fighting back on that one. They're using like when guys get caught cheating. Look, I did this, but I ain't do all of that. You got North Carolina that got away with their academic fraud for years. This is what exactly has been going on. And there has not been a balanced system, because you have one school, and this is a lot. It's from the CBS article, really great article, and talked about how Utah, that they gave every player a truck through a local dealership. Is that part of the $20.5 million? No. Ohio State spent at least $20 million on their national championship roster. Texas giving $50,000 to just for being an offensive lineman. Where's the fair market in any of that? So that $20.5 million that everybody is talking about, this is Pollyanna land. This ain't real life. It's not going to matter. And when July 1st comes and the implementation of this house settlement and the revenue sharing and all of that stuff is supposed to be in place, how is that supposed to work? And why would players see? Here's the other part that people are not thinking about. The adults, the people whose money is going to be solidified, is they are the ones that are negotiating this. They're not negotiating this on behalf of the players. No, they are trying to keep costs down. That's what they're going to do. And you know what's going to happen? Players are going to sue because they're going to be like, hold on. Why would this stay at $20.5 million for 10 years when the revenues are going up every single year? Why? This don't make no sense. Then you're going to have the the Title IX part of it, which we're going to get to in just a second. That's going to play into it as well. Because how does the $20.5 million get split up? I think any common sense people will tell you, yes, football should get the vast majority of it because football generates by far the most money. But then if you're at Tennessee, or UConn, how do you split that with men's basketball versus women's basketball? Both of them make money. How about at South Carolina, where the women's basketball team, I guarantee you, makes more money, brings in more revenue every year than the men's basketball team does? How does that work? See, we're getting some problems around here. And how does baseball versus softball? Because from my understanding, softball does better numbers on television when the tournament comes around than the men do in baseball. So how you gonna work that out? You're getting my drift now. Now, the question is, who is going to oversee this estimated $14 billion that's going to be distributed in college sports over the next 10 years? So the short list that CBS came up with was Oliver Luck, which is he's been involved with the Pac-12. He's been involved with the Olympic Committee, all sorts of things for a very long time, and we know who his son is, Andrew Luck. Then you got Nick Saban. People have floated that around. Not a bad option. And David Shaw. He's with the Detroit Lions now, but he was a longtime coach at Stanford. Father was a coach, administrator in the family, Stanford guy, smart guy. Then you got Condoleezza Rice. She's been involved in the world of college sports for a very long time, sat on the college football playoff committee, is a bureaucrat, understands business, all sorts of stuff. She might be the answer. And then you got Rick Neuheisel, which they threw out. Listen, I'm a Rick Neuheisel fan, like him. He actually was the first Power Five school to offer me a scholarship, like him, and that was when he was at Colorado. But I don't know about him as the commissioner. I'm just saying. So that's the nuts and bolts of this thing at first. So you guys make sure that you like, subscribe, hop in the comments. We will, address your things as they come up. All right. So now the question is, how does his NIL guidance, well, him rescinding Joe Biden's NIL guidance, how does that matter? Because the U.S. Department of Education has rescinded Biden administrative administration's Title IX NIL guidance. First of all, I thought they were shutting down the Department of Education, which I don't think is a good idea, but that's a whole nother thing. So how you gonna do that, but you shutting them down? Anyways, so with that rescension, right? So the way that President Biden's, when they gave the guidance on the Title IX with the settlement, it would have essentially said that the NIL money needed to be distributed to athletes proportionally when it comes to men and women athletes. Now, and if the revenue sharing payments did not get distributed equally between men's and women's sports, schools would have been in violation of Title IX. And when I tweeted this on Twitter, X, people didn't like it because I said, all right, President Trump rescinding the Biden guidance does nothing more than what the Biden guidance did, which is a bunch of nothing. Their guidance on it does not mean how the courts are going to decide it because these things are going to court. If you think that the women are going to sit idly by while the universities say, no, we can distribute this however you want. We're going to give 90% to the men's sports. We're going to give you women's sports 10%. Now, what I believe should probably happen is because that the schools should probably pay money to retain their most valuable athletes. Duh. Whether it's basketball, football, baseball, whatever it is. But this idea of $20.5 million, this is a laughable joke. There are going to be more lawsuits. There are going to be more problems. And this is ultimately going to blow up in their faces, just like everything with the NCAA already has. There needs to be a total reshaping. This is not something a band-aid, some stitches, resetting a fracture. It ain't gonna work. This is something that is a total restart, a blow up. This is when you a building. So let's look at the build the NCAA like a building. This building needs to be condemned. This building needs to be condemned. It needs to be leveled to the ground and rebuilt on solid ground, solid foundation. Because what they're trying to do now is not going to work at all. You need a football has to be separate. It operates under a totally different guideline and lens. And the same things that Northern Illinois needs are not the same thing that Notre Dame needs, are not the same thing that the University of Illinois needs. They're not. I mean, hell, Notre Dame and Indiana, which are in the same state, barely have the same needs. So how do you think that a IUPUI in Indiana still like that they should have a say so in what happens to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame should have a say so in what happens to them? They shouldn't, and common sense people will tell you that, but people don't like common sense. Um, and you guys, we're going to talk more about this throughout the rest of the week. So make sure that you guys like, subscribe, get notifications, tell a friend, and share this video with somebody who doesn't fully understand what's going on with this, because this is a terrible idea. It's good in premise, but if y'all don't think that the lawsuits are going to stop, they are not, because more problems are going to arise. And they're just stomping and pressing this forward, and that's where Donald Trump, he may be able to get this thing pushed through and make sure that it happens. But pushing it through and making it happen are not the same thing. And then there's one other part of the House settlement is that schools have to opt in, right? Schools have to opt in. So if you opt out, you still operate under the same old rules of the 85 scholarships in football. You operate under obviously no salary cap. You operate under the rules as they currently are. If you opt in, you can go up to 105 scholarships, which I don't think in football makes really that big of a difference, because those other 20 kids are going to hop in the portal anyway because they're sitting on the bench. You already have kids hopping in the portal at 85. So what are you going to have at 105? And so that's one element of it. And if I'm Ohio State, why would I opt in if Michigan is considering opting out? So Michigan can operate under the current rules, which is the Wild Wild West, and be just fine. Or, and now if I'm Ohio State, I'm at a massive disadvantage. This don't make no sense, because I would not be opting in, because it's bogus. All right, the next thing up, Cameron Newton. Come on, Cam. This dude continues to put his foot in his mouth. And I do not understand why. And the latest was about his former teammates. He threw his former teammates under the bus. I had to find this clip because I was honestly I was shocked. And here it is.
When I was the first pick, I went into a locker room of losers.
How did you handle the pressure of being the top pick?
Let's put it in perspective. You're the top pick because what?
Where you play?
No. You're looking at it from a personal situation. I'm talking about from the professional situation. You're the top pick because that was the worst team in the NFL the year before. For me, I wanted to be the number one pick. You could potentially be the first pick, but bro, you have no way of impacting the game like a quarterback does. You can lock down the number one receiver. You can make impact plays on offense all you want, but it's still not like a quarterback. My issue is when I was the first pick, I went into a locker room of losers. Guys didn't know how to win. Guys didn't know how to prepare. It was a culture shock for me. The games don't mean a lot to a lot of people in the league like you would expect. It's just money. Not everybody has capabilities to be impact players. They're just players.
Because when you first come to the NFL, you have no idea how to win. Tom Brady didn't know how to win in the NFL. Neither did you, Cam. Neither did Patrick Mahomes. Neither did Jaden Daniels. Neither did no quarterback, no player. Jalen Hurts, who just won the Super Bowl. You do not come in the NFL knowing how to win. You knew how to win in college. You learned how to win in college, but you didn't know how to win. And yes, he's right. You go to probably the worst team or the team that had the worst record unless trades were involved or whatever. But this is bad. This is bad. And I don't understand why Cam Newton. I hope there's somebody around Cam saying, yo, Cam, because Steve Smith responded and was like, hold on, bro. He was like, I don't think that's a word that he's ever been called with any level of seriousness. Because it was bad. It's like Cam Newton is salty about the organization not acknowledging him as much as he desired. And on some level, he is right. Because he said, his son pointed out that there's nothing on Bank of America Stadium where the Panthers play that points out that they once had an MVP quarterback and took him to a Super Bowl. He's right. You should acknowledge your only MVP around that joint on some level. However, Cam has to take a little bit of responsibility there because this is a relationship business, just like everything else. How you treat people, because his teammates have really good things to say about him. But I can't say the same for the ownership. And remember, the ownership is different now with David Tepper than it was when Cam got drafted. Now, granted, Cam did go play for the new ownership, but he didn't have the same impact when he went back to Carolina. It just didn't work like that. Because the harsh truth is that Cam's personality hasn't made it easy for the city of Charlotte to fully embrace the man. And now when you come out there saying stuff like that, it don't sit right with their former teammates like Captain Munnerlyn, who was on his team for 5 years and was like, yo, that was a slap in the face. Cam still just wants to be relevant. He don't have to do all that to be relevant. You're Cam Newton. It just looks bad amongst people that you went and did so much to. I mean, and then you got Jordan Gross talking about him. So now, Charles Johnson. So now you are pitting yourself against the very people that you're supposed to be celebrated with. You got Jonathan Stewart, Thomas Davis, the other guys I named, Greg Olsen. Come on, man. Like the city of Charlotte probably wants nothing more than to love Cam Newton the way he wants to. But they also love a lot of them dudes that he called losers too. Come on, man. You got to tighten up, Cam. You got to tighten up because this was an epic fail on your part. Speaking of epic fails, though, Patrick Mahomes' daddy. Patrick Mahomes' daddy. This dude is a liability. I as a father, this is the thing that I fear, right? And so it implores me to make good decisions on a day in and day out basis. And Patrick Mahomes' dad may not be wrong in this situation in terms of the exchange that he had with John Rocker. He may not be wrong. However, though, him not being wrong is totally different than him being right. If you understand, if you get my drift. So I'm gonna play the video for you guys. And it is wild to me that we end up in a situation where Patrick Mahomes' dad, his dad, is in a situation where he is getting in a fight in public. And if you don't know who John Rocker is, I'll use two words to describe him: national disgrace. Because when you go back, right, John Rocker, so obviously him and his dad exchanged words. Apparently they didn't like each other when they were playing in the in MLB. They didn't like each other. And John Rocker's a guy who was Kanye West before Kanye West. With the when he was talking about the citizens of New York in a Sports Illustrated interview with John Perlman, hates gay people, hates the libs, hates poor people, pretty much all foreigners. But he's a guy that people would call today, he's a free speech advocate. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can say what you want to say, but you're not immune to consequences. But how this has played out is these two dudes are going to fight. They are going to fight on a barstool fighting event. This is the thing that I hate about it and why I said that Patrick Mahomes' dad is a liability right now. Because last year, when it came to the Super Bowl, what happened? He got a DUI not too long, but before that, weren't sure if he was going to even be able to go to the game, anything like that. And now this time, he is going to end up on a fight card, a barstool fight card. And now there's another part of this because Patrick Mahomes has been on the record saying he don't really fool with Barstool. And now his dad has agreed to make money from Barstool and have the name Patrick Mahomes then associated with Barstool, even though there's the senior in it. And these dudes are supposed to fight, what's that, like April 17th or something like that? Man, I would be so upset if I were Patrick Mahomes. He got his wife making way too many noise and all of that stuff for not bringing in no damn income. You got his brother getting in trouble and causing chaos. His dad causing chaos. This is a ridiculous situation, and I actually feel bad for Patrick Mahomes right here. And this is something that as a father, I try my best to not embarrass my kids. And I can't even imagine if one of them ended up being a very famous person. Man, parents, tighten up, man. Tighten up. I know it's your life too, but listen, don't embarrass the kiddos. All right, last thing up. The Mavs, man. I actually feel bad for Mavs fans and their organization right now because there are two people that have been booed, they have been criticized, they have been lamented by the fans, and rightfully so, because fans have the right to be upset. And their governor slash owner, Patrick Dumont, he's been booed and frustrated by the fans and their pushback. Their general manager, Nico Harrison, that traded Luka away. He's been the subject of their displeasure. He's even had to get security around his home, around his kids, around his family, everything else. So here is the thing. Mavs fans have a right to be upset. And the more pushback that the governor and the general manager do, the more pushback of removing people from kicking people out of the stadium that have signs or mouthed on the jumbotron, fire Nico Harrison. Are we in North Korea? No, this is free speech. It's different. If you're threatening somebody, yes, you should there should be some consequences for you. Should you be allowed to, as a fan, to protest outside? 100%. Does it make it worse that Anthony Davis got immediately hurt? 100%, because it could have been the right trade. But if you are in ownership and you push back on your fans like that, they will push back. And the idea that you can silence them, that you can force them into silence, that ain't never gonna happen. All you're gonna do is make your own self more frustrated and more upset. Now, here is the thing though, is that like let's look at this situation. Is It's a similar situation when it was revealed that John Fisher, the A's owner, said that they were going to leave Oakland. As a fan, there's nothing you can do. Showing up to boo, that still puts money in the owner's pocket. Not showing up means that your apathy gets used as their permission for the next thing uh, for you to hate. And it punishes the other players that you rooted for. So here's my advice to Mavs fans. My advice to Mavs fans: put on your big boy pants, suck it up, pray for Anthony Davis, pray for that the rest of your roster, that it gets healthy and that you win a championship. Pray that this was the right move, because sitting there with your bitter beer face, sitting there trying to boo the owner, sitting there trying to boo the general manager, that is not going to work. The trade is done. Luka is not coming home. He's not going back to that $15 million house he just built in Dallas. It ain't happening. So you have two choices. You got to either get over it and move on and recognize what you have, which is a damn good roster, especially after Anthony Davis gets back. Or what you can do is keep peeking through the Lakers window and we miss you, Luka. We miss you, Luka. Luka ain't coming back. Luka happy out here in La La Land, man. It's time to get over it. Turn the page. But you guys, though, that's Unafraid Show. Thank you guys for your time, your energy. I appreciate it. Make sure that you like, subscribe, tell a friend. Peace out. Catch you guys tomorrow.